Alright, welcome back to another Art of War 3 replay. I'm your host, John Cena, and today we're going to be doing a clan versus clan 2v2 battle. I'm going to be the green Confederate player, and my ally, Bullet 82 MK2, is going to be the blue Confederate player. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to be facing off against another clan here. It's going to be a resistance clan, 9 ROTA to be exact. And let's get into the action. So we're about 4 minutes into the game. We can see that the red player is only HQ2 at this time. They're going for some alligators. Meanwhile, yellow is HQ3. I'm going to see if I can leave a cyclone in the back area there to try to get a visual on the red player, but my cyclone is going to get cleaned up. So the plan here for Bullet and I originally was that I was going to go for a full aviation build, and Bullet was going to go for the naval build, and we would go for naval control on this map. So we can see that Bullet is getting some more infrastructure down just to continue to develop his base. Meanwhile, on my end, I'm actually going to get a few ground units out. We can see that we've got some light engagement here happening. Bullet is going to try and fight for control of this container, but Red's got a lot of coyotes in the area. Bullet is going to come in though with the Zeus tank, and that Zeus tank heavy armor is going to force Red to retreat. So meanwhile, I've got a handful of Vertex out at this point. Yellow is getting a scout onto my base. I'm going to go ahead and clean up that Dragonfly. And we can see now that Bullet is going to reinforce that container. He's got 2 Zeus tanks in the area, and that is going to force Red to retreat. Meanwhile, I've got a handful of ground units for protection. Vertex coming in again. We're going to snipe that torpedo platform. Looks like there's some dragonflies and gators in the area. I'm going to go in for one more swing at that torpedo platform. We're going to lose a Vertex though, so that was an okay trade. Maybe not the best. I'm going to go ahead and tech up to HQ4. My plan again is that mass aviation build with Vertex. I'm sending a Vertex to scout. Looks like yellow is already HQ4, and they're going for a JCP build. So I feel like I'm going to need some ground units to defend with. So again, that's why I have a handful of hammer tanks. Meanwhile, looks like Bullet is getting those Vikings out. Bullet needs to reposition those Vikings though to get them in a nice offensive line. I'm going to leave a Cyclone on the top of the cliff there. It's going to give me a nice visual of advanced warning in case yellow decides to attack. Here comes another Dragonfly to scout. Send my Vertex in, and we clean up the Dragonfly, no problem. So, just continuing to produce ground units at this point. I've got 2 airfields down, a couple Vertex out so far. Meanwhile, Bullet is continuing to produce structures. Look at this, very large JCP army moving out. I'm going to snipe that Chameleon though. And I'm going to snipe a second Chameleon, put some damage onto it. And now I'm trying to dish out some damage onto the Porcupines. My Vertex are starting to take some good damage from the Porcupines, so I'm going to have to retreat. I lost a couple Vertex there, but that's okay. We've got a good trade-off overall. I was able to clean up a couple Porcupines and Chameleons there. Bullet is just reinforcing his front line. We can see some Dragonflies and Grenadiers coming in, though, trying to secure that container. Looks like the Dragonflies tried to make a little bit of a push onto Bullet, but they are going to retreat. Bullet's got a handful of infantry that he's going to send over to the crate here. Let's see how this pans out. Looks like it's primarily heavy assaults. Heavy assaults are good against Dragonflies, but I don't know if Bullet's got enough firepower to take the container here. Again, that's a lot of Grenadiers and a lot of Dragonflies in the area. Looks like that anti-air tower is firing onto the Dragonflies. Yellow's got to be careful with how they're navigating around the area. I'm sending my Vertex in now for an attack, and it looks like we're going to hit this special vehicle factory. I'm going to clean up these coyotes as well in the area. So I was able to swipe the level 3 special vehicle factory. We can see that yellow is already HQ5. So here, this was actually a mistake on my part. I should not have done this. I tried to push a ground assault onto Red's Gators. So the original idea was I was going to distract Red, and then Bullet was going to use his Viking army to destroy the Red player's navy. Now, at first, it looks like Bullet's got the number superiority with the Vikings, but as you can see, as the battle unfolds here, that Red's Gators are just absolutely ripping apart Bullet's Vikings. Bullet's Vikings are no match whatsoever, and this is when I realized that we had severely underestimated the red player's naval capacity. So these Gators were able to finish off Bullet's Vikings. Red now has the numerical superiority on the water. Bullet's entire navy has been shredded, and my entire ground army as well. So not looking good for us right now. We're going to need to rebuild. So I'm producing some more factories now to go for more tanks and infantry to reinforce my current ground army. So I've also got a level 3 special vehicle factory for shield production. We can see that there's a dragonfly coming in. For scouting purposes, it's going to get cleaned up by those torpedo platforms. Bullet is now trying to go for a 3rd naval shipyard to increase his Viking production. Looks like I was trying to launch an attack with the Vertex. It was not entirely successful. We can see that Yellow has a huge JCP army at this point. Looks like I'm trying to attack those Gators again. But Bullet's going to tell me to fall back. Looks like those Gators are going to be able to secure the resource containers there. So I'm at pretty full command points at this point. I'm going to need to tech up, but I don't think I'm going to have the time to. Here comes Yellow with a huge JCP army. That is a ton of Jaguar tanks. My Vertex come in. We're going to snipe a Chameleon there, but it's not going to be enough. My concern now is that I'm not in a good position to actually fight off this JCP army. I don't have a big enough ground army, and I think my Vertex are not going to be as helpful as I would like them to be. Bullet is now trying to reinforce his front line with more Vikings. Here comes the JCP army. Initially, the JCP army is kind of moving around, trying not to get into my forces here. I'm trying to take out as many tanks as I can, trying to keep them under the cover of the shield generator. So I'm going to move my hammer tanks into the JCP army, trying to see if I can clean them up. This is not looking good though. I've only got a red attack boost going, and these Jaguars absolutely shred my army. Meanwhile, Red's coming in now with Alligators. The Alligators are nicely positioned so that they stay away from the torpedo platforms, and Bullet is now engaged in a full-on naval combat situation. Meanwhile, this JCP army is now moving on to my base here, and this is not looking good for me. I was able to shoot a Chameleon there with my Vertex. A Bullet is just getting surrounded here on the water though. These Gators are destroying Bullet's navy. Bullet is absolutely struggling at this point. This is not looking good on either front for us. So I'm having to retreat now back to the front of my base here. There's a ton of Jaguar tanks rolling up onto my base, and it looks like Red is trying to assemble Gators near the entryway to get to my base. Looks like now these tanks are going to move in onto my base. I've got 2 Vertex left. This is not that much, but Yellow's only got 2 Porcupines left, so if I can clean up those Porcupines, I'll have free reign to attack those Jaguar tanks. And there we go. Those Porcupines do get cleaned up, but these Jaguar tanks are dishing out a ton of damage. And meanwhile, Bullet's only got a couple Vikings left, and there's a ton of Gators trying to amass to make an attack on to my base. I've got units here in production to try and defend the area. I'm going to be able to clean up these Jaguar tanks. This is when I kind of realized that both of us are in a tough situation now. There is a huge Gator army waiting to launch an assault on my base. You can see those Gators are just continuing to amass just outside of Bullet's reach there. And Bullet and I can both read this. I dropped some torpedo platforms. I know that this is not going to be enough, but I need to also have a ground army to defend. Here comes Bullet with the Vikings. He's got 4 Vikings. Again, this is not going to be enough, but any damage is good damage. Bullet is going to try and delay the red player from launching their assault on me. But again, these Vikings are no match for the red player's Gators. Meanwhile, Yellow has another Chameleon Jaguar army coming in. We can see some Porcupines as well. I don't quite have the resources. I've got about 70 command points worth of units, almost 80 command points, but again, that's not going to be enough. Bullet, meanwhile, sending a Zeus tank over to check out the red player's base. I tell Bullet to scout out that Gator, and Bullet can see that there is that Gator in the area. Looks like there's even more Gators moving in. Again, this is not looking good for us. This is plenty of gators on the red side, considering how much stronger they are than Bullet's Vikings. It seems like Bullet is trying to get them to come close enough to those torpedo platforms, and those torpedo platforms are going to be able to help out and dish out some damage against the gators. The gators are going to have to retreat. So meanwhile on my end, I'm just trying to assemble as much forces as I can. I've got full command points at this point, and looks like red is once again moving more gators down towards the bottom area of the map. Looks like these Vikings are firing onto red, and Bullet knows that I'm in trouble here, so he's going to send his Vikings to try and support. He knows it's only a handful of Vikings here. It's not going to be enough to take out red, but it is going to buy some time here. And so these Vikings are coming in trying to dish out damage. Look at how many gators there are. There are way too many gators, and Bullet's Vikings get absolutely crushed by these gators. And now I'm trying to deploy more torpedo platforms, but it's too late now. Here comes the gators. I've got 3 torpedo platforms down to put fire down, and this is not going to be enough on my end. These 3 other torpedo platforms are going to get cleaned up, and here comes the JCP army from the yellow player, and both red and yellow making their pushes onto my base. I need to defend against this attack. This is a huge attack. I think if I were to redo the defense against this attack, I would maybe move my ground army away from the water and keep it away from the gators. I tell Bullet that he needs to charge and move in onto the red player. Considering how big red's navy is, this means that they probably don't have as many ground troops for defense. And here we go. We're just continuing to fight as much as we can here, doing a lot of damage here. Some lag just happened there. Looks like here's Bullet moving in with a shield generator and some units, and look at this, my army has been absolutely decimated. I do not have anything left for defense. I have like 30 command points, and that is not going to cut it. A ton of Jaguar tanks are moving onto my base here. This is not looking good at all. So just continue to pump out hammer tanks as fast as I can. Got 2 Vertex in the area, but it's going to be tough because those gators provide anti-air support, and there's porcupines as well. Meanwhile, Bullet is trying to make a push with the heavy assaults and shield generator, a few Zeus tanks as well, and looks like I've lost my headquarters. I do not have a way to produce any units at this point, so this is looking really bad on our part. My last few tanks have finished producing, and now I'm just going to have to rely on whatever I've got left in the base to try and make a last stand. Bullet is making some pretty good progress though. He's got about 6 Zeus tanks and a few infantry in the area. He's cleaned up a fair amount of barracks. Meanwhile, this JCP army from the yellow player is just continuing to demolish the inside of my base. I've got a gold common defense boost on, and the reason being is that I'm trying to keep my base alive for as long as possible for a couple reasons. And we'll get to that in just a second here. These Zeus tanks from Bullet have cleaned up the tier 5 HQ from the red player, so that's some good news on our part. So back to my base. My base is just continuing to get decimated here. The reason I've got now an emergency measures boost on is that I'm trying to stay alive for as long as possible. I'm trying to accumulate as many resources as possible so that if Bullet can get me back in the game, I can rebuild and get back in and contribute in a meaningful way. So at this point, there's about 5 or 6 Jaguar tanks there, a handful of Porcupines, and a Chameleon left. But again, I don't have any ground troops to counter. Bullet, in the meantime, has a handful of Zeus tanks, a torrent, and a shield generator. These last few buildings on my end are getting cleaned up by the resistance player, and this is not looking good at all. It's going to potentially turn into a 1v1, but here comes Red trying to rebuild back into the game. Red is going to drop a backup headquarters. Not looking good on our end. I don't have a way to deploy a backup headquarters yet. And these last couple buildings are going to get finished off by the yellow player. So, Bullet's plan now is to get me back into the game. So he's got a handful of troops here. Zeus tanks, heavy assault, and a torrent, which should be enough to take care of the army. And here comes the army from the yellow player. Yellow's trying to make a push onto Bullet, but Bullet's got the units to counter. And Yellow is probably going to have to retreat, and is going to take some casualties here. I've only got a Cyclone left, and I'm going to move the Cyclone to the front of Bullet's entrance there. And the reason being is I want him to have some stealth protection in case a JCP army hits the front of the base. And just as I suspected, here's a JCP army hitting the front of Bullet's base here. I'm going to wait to move my Cyclone. I'm going to try to see if I can reveal units. There's a couple of Porcupines in there. They're dishing out a ton of damage onto my Cyclones though. So I need to pull my Cyclone back. Bullet is meanwhile making a push onto the plateau where my base used to be. And he's doing a great job cleaning up these tanks here. And with the tanks in the area, he's going to be able to finish them off. Meanwhile, this JCP army, though, is putting pressure on Bullet, though. Bullet's having to defend. Looks like there's just a Chameleon and a Jaguar or two left in my area, being that the rest of Yellow's ground army is here, trying to destroy Bullet's front line. Bullet's in danger here. Bullet needs to get some forces together to defend the front entrance here, or he's going to be finished, and it's game over. So there's Torrent here firing now onto the JCP army. There's a few fire assaults mixed in with a Zeus tank. Bullet's desperately trying to produce more units to take out this fog, and the fog is now moving in onto the base. I actually think this is a mistake on the Yellow player's part. They should have maybe finished off the rocket tower first, because that rocket tower is doing a ton of damage onto the army now that the fog is gone. And Bullet is going to be able to successfully defend this attack overall. He's only got some fire assaults though, and Bullet's now trying to see if he can save that assault vehicle factory before it goes down. Let's see if he can save the assault vehicle factory, and he's able to save it. Meanwhile, I'm able to drop a ton of infrastructure down. I actually saved my reconstruction boost, waited until I had 2 construction yards, and then used it to build primarily supply centers and power plants. So now I've got 6 supply centers down, I've got 4 barracks, an assault vehicle factory, and a special vehicle factory coming out. Here comes some Gators from the red player. This is a very odd move from the red player. Red is driving the Gators straight into the torpedo platforms to try and dish out some damage. My suspicion with this is that Red was intentionally just burning off command points in order to contribute those Gators towards making units on the ground instead. So looks like Bullet is going to try and launch a ground assault, and look at this, there are so many riflemen. This is absolutely ridiculous. Bullet's got a couple infantry on his side and fire assaults, but this is way too many infantry to deal with for just a couple fire assaults. That shield generator is going to get cleaned up, and now it's Zeus tanks and a Torrent versus a ton of infantry. Red has gone full spam mode for defense, and this is not an ideal counter to face off against infantry. Bullet is going to need to retreat eventually, because these riflemen are slowly whittling down the hit points from the Zeus tanks, and there we go. Bullet is going to go ahead and retreat his ground troops and regroup at the front entrance. These riflemen are continuing to push back Bullet's forces. Bullet's now got 3 fire assaults in a bunker, some anti-infantry to deal out some damage, and look at this. This is making such a huge difference now. Just a handful of fire assaults in a bunker, able to dish out some really good damage against this army of riflemen. And these riflemen now have been reduced significantly, and Bullet is going to be able to clean them up, no problem. So, Bullet is continuing to just produce units to rebuild that ground army. Meanwhile, I got a Cyclone moving in. I just want to scout out the Yellow player, see what they're up to. Looks like Yellow is still HQ 5. No changes there. We don't see a nuke of any kind. Looks like they're just going for the full ground army. Meanwhile, I'm only HQ 3. Trying to get some Torrents out, along with some heavy assault and Zeus tanks. I'm switching my build now. I don't want to go for hammers again. Here comes some more JCP trying to make another push onto my base. I'm going to be able to defend it though. I've got a mix of infantry and tanks here. I've also got the range advantage with the Torrents. So this is going to force Yellow to have to close the distance to engage me, and that's when I'm going to use my infantry and my tanks to move in. And it looks like Yellow's doing a little bit of cat and mouse here, trying to draw my infantry away from the Torrent, but I'm trying to keep my army this time close to the Torrent just to maximize the utility of it. And That way it'll help me with my overall defense. JCP Army is now trying to make another move. They're going to deploy and they're going to go for the commit this time. Let's see how this plays out. I'm trying to stream in infantry now and deal with this fog. I'm taking some heavy casualties here, but we are dishing out some good damage against these JCP armies. It looks like we're going to be able to dish out enough damage to scare Yellow off. Yellow is going to retreat and regroup. Meanwhile, Bullet's got a full Zeus army with shield and fire assault, and there are so many infantry flooding in from the resistance side. It's absolutely ridiculous. We can see that Yellow's also got some Jaguar tanks and porcupines, so there's a very heavy defensive line from the resistance players. Bullet's got a very strong ground army though, and there's no way for the resistance side to flank this army in a meaningful way. And Bullet is now going to move the ground army forward. That shield generator is a little too far forward though, and it is going to get cleaned up, and Bullet is going to lose a shield generator. I tell Bullet to do the full commit onto the resistance player's side. We can see infantry continuing to stream out from the resistance side, and we can see now JCP army here in the corner. Now my infantry are making a move. I've got a Cyclone in the mix as well. And meanwhile, Bullet's wall of steel slowly moving its way onto the red player's base once again. Trying to take control of this top part of the U-bend to push a ground troop across the map, slowly but surely. Meanwhile, we can see that red is gone absolute spammer mode. Look how many barracks there are. Absolutely ridiculous. This is looks like 13 barracks. I think when I counted it after recording this video, there was like 14 or 15 barracks. But basically, red's gone full spammer mode with the rifleman. Absolutely ridiculous. But it looks like Bullet's doing a good job trying to take care of these barracks. He's whittling them down slowly but surely. On my end, though, I'm struggling a little bit. I actually lost a ton of my infantry there, so I need to be careful. These Zeus tanks continuing to push, and it looks like there's more than 15 barracks there. Looks like these Jaguar tanks are trying to make another push onto my Zeus tanks here. I've got 3 Zeus tanks and a Torrent. It looks like my Zeus tanks are dishing out some good damage. Looks like Bullet is also dishing out some good damage, steadily cleaning up these barracks here. Again, absolutely ridiculous from the resistance side. Really annoying about how they went for a full spam strategy. Here we go now. Bullet is continuing to push with those Zeus tanks, steadily cleaning up the barracks, steadily taking out the spam and reducing red's capacity to defend against Bullet's troops. And we can see that Bullet is going to be able to clean up these last few barracks. No problem. Bullet is going to move his forces towards the top of the map and then make a push downward just to stay away from gators. Meanwhile, on my end, I'm just continuing to try and reinforce. I've been able to go HQ4, and now I'm producing a ground army. And look at this, only 10 minutes to go in the game. Bullet and I are both down by 30% activity. We need to finish the game and finish these bases off, or it's going to be over at the top of the hour. So Bullet is now going to clean up that tier 4 headquarters, and it looks like red is slowly losing the rest of their base here. Looks like the Jaguar tank from the red players. Jaguar tank is going to get cleaned up though from Bullet. Looks like there's double naval shipyards as well that were in production of gators previously. JCP army moving in though. Bullet's trying to take care of these last remnants of the red player's base while also dealing with these gators and the fog here. So it looks like Bullet's starting to lose steam though. Bullet's taking some heavy casualties from this JCP fog, stitching out some good damage, and it looks like Bullet is in danger of losing the last bits of his army. Meanwhile, I'm taking the opportunity to try and push a ground army now. I'm at the entrance of Yellow's base. We can see there's a few dragonflies there and some infantry. But again, I don't think it's going to be enough to stop my ground army. Meanwhile, these Jaguar tanks continue to just clean up Bullet's army. And now we can see a few more units streaming off the plateau. I've got my Torrent on force fire to try and destroy anything at the top of the ledge there. But here comes JCP though. And now I'm trying to make a push onto the plateau to get some visual, but I'm taking a ton of casualties trying to get up onto the plateau. my army's getting absolutely decimated, and this is not looking good on my end. It looks like yellow is going to be able to successfully defend my assault here, and I'm going to have to rethink my strategy here. Bullet, meanwhile, has been able to regroup, has got a few more Zeus tanks and fire assaults in the area. Jaguars are deployed around the headquarters for red, trying to defend and hold on, but I don't think it's going to be enough. These Jaguar tanks are getting cleaned up, but look at this. There's a huge JCP army from the yellow player, once again cleaning up my ground troops. I had my rally point set to try and reinforce my assault, but this is not looking good. Zeus tanks now moving in for Bullet. They're going to clean up the construction yard. Bullet's doing a good job cleaning up red, but I'm in danger here. I need to hold the line and push yellow back. So I've got a defensive line set up here at the top of the U-bend. Again, this is not going to be enough ground troops for the number of Jaguar tanks in the area, but it is going to slow down the yellow player. And hopefully, Bullet's going to have time to get to the yellow player's base and take out their base. Meanwhile, red's trying to desperately defend with the last couple alligators there. My defensive line has been cleaned up by the yellow player. Now I'm forming a third defensive line with infantry and vehicles right at the entrance of my base there. And now we're coming up on 5 minutes to go now. It's 51% to 67%. So we have a difference of 16% now, which is better, but again, it's only 5 minutes in the game. We need to destroy the yellow player before time runs out here. Red is out of the game though. It is a 1v2, but time is not on our side here again. Bullet's now trying to finish off these last couple gators here and make a push onto yellow. In the meantime, my troops are making a push onto the yellow player's base. Yellow's most likely retreating, not to push an assault onto me, but to go and defend against Bullet. Bullet's moving a pretty big army towards yellow, and yellow is dropping walls to defend. Looks like there's a ton of Jaguar tanks that are deployed in siege mode, waiting for Bullet, and they're dishing out some heavy damage against Bullet's army here. And look at this, there are so many Jaguar tanks and so many walls being deployed, but Bullet's got that shield generator, and it's increasing the durability of his Zeus tanks significantly. And Bullet is now just raining heavy fire with the Zeus tanks. It's Jaguars against Zeus tanks now. The Jaguars have the advantage in terms of positioning, but the Zeus tanks have the durability and the shield generator to back them up. And again, we can see Bullet doing a great job keeping that shield generator away from the front line, but close enough to support those Zeus tanks. I'm taking this opportunity to produce as many units as possible, and I've got fire assaults starting to reach the entrance of Yellow's base on the side here. And I'm pretty close to full command points. I've got my rally point set to the yellow player's base, trying to produce units. Looks like Bullet still has not gotten onto the plateau yet. Meanwhile, I've got infantry starting to pour onto the plateau here. I've got some fire assaults and heavy assaults mixed together. The fire assaults are their tank damage and they take out infantry, while the heavy assaults dish out damage against the vehicles and the buildings. Meanwhile, the full JCP army is at the top entrance here. Bullet still has not made it onto the entrance. Is desperately trying to fight to get onto the plateau. Meanwhile, my infantry now starting to stream in. This is more than the yellow player can handle. We're coming up on about 2 minutes to go now. We're finally making it onto the plateau, but do we have enough time left? Bullet's tanks are still fighting it out with the yellow player. Yellow's still pouring Jaguar tanks out, and this is not looking good for Bullet, but we've still got 2 minutes to go, and my forces are fully moving onto the yellow player's base. Yellow is now in trouble, but so are we. We've got less than 2 minutes to go now. Heavy assaults are just pouring onto the plateau on my end. Meanwhile, Bullet is still struggling to get onto the plateau. These Jaguar tanks are just desperately trying to defend the top side of the base here. But it looks like Yellow is in fact running out of Jaguar tanks. Meanwhile, on my end, I've taken out the Tier 5 headquarters. Yellow is no longer able to make units. They drop another headquarters trying to rebuild, but they're not going to be able to rebuild there. And there's only a fraction of units left now. But here we go. 1 minute left in the battle. We're down by 7% here. We need to finish the base or we're finished here. And it looks like we are going to finish the battle on time. All right, that is the battle. Hope you all enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one.
Victory.